The enemy lied to you about who you are. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently and strategically, and with a precision that should tell you something about how seriously he takes the threat of you walking in the fullness of what I made you to be. He studied you. He found the places where your confidence was thinnest, and your history was hardest, and your wounds were deepest, and he built his lies around those exact coordinates. He made them feel like self-awareness. He made them feel like honest assessment. He dressed them up in the language of humility and realism, and made you think you were simply being clear-eyed about yourself when you were actually agreeing with a carefully constructed campaign designed to keep you from ever becoming what I always intended you to be. Today that campaign ends. Today I am going to tell you the truth about who you are, and I need you to hold it against everything the enemy has told you and let the truth win. My dear child, I want to start at the beginning, because the beginning is where the lies started too. Before you had a history to be used against you, before you had failures that could be pointed to, before you had wounds that could be pressed, the enemy already had a plan for the narrative he was going to build around your life. Because he saw, before you were born, what I had placed in you. He saw the calling. He saw the gifting. He saw the capacity I had built into you for the specific thing I made you for. And he knew that if you ever walked in the full expression of that, if you ever stepped into the identity I had given you without apology and without diminishment, the impact on his kingdom would be significant. So the plan was not to destroy you. The plan was to shrink you, to keep you contained, to make the life you actually lived so much smaller than the life I designed for you that the calling never fully materialized, that the gifting never found its full expression, that the threat you represented never became a reality. Every lie he has ever told you about yourself has been in service of that one goal, keeping you small, keeping you contained, keeping you from becoming who you actually are. I want to name some of the specific lies because I think naming them is part of how they lose their power. The first one, the foundational one, the one that all the others are built on, is this: you are not enough. That is the original lie. The one he whispered into the earliest tender places in you, the one he reinforced every time something went wrong, the one he has been building evidence for across the full span of your life. Not enough in terms of ability, not enough in terms of worth. Not enough to be loved without conditions, not enough to be chosen, not enough to succeed at the things you were made for, not enough to deserve the life you have been hoping for. Not enough. It is the simplest lie and the most devastating one, because once it takes root, it colors everything. Every failure becomes confirmation. Every rejection becomes proof. Every hard season becomes evidence. And the accumulation of that evidence, year after year, experience after experience, can create something that feels indistinguishable from fact. But it is not fact. It has never been fact. It is a lie that was planted in you so early and watered so consistently that it grew to feel like truth. And I am pulling it up by the root today. You are enough. Not the version of you that has everything figured out. Not the version of you that has resolved all the doubts and healed all the wounds and achieved everything on the list. The version of you that is here right now, in this moment, with everything you are carrying and everything you are still working through and everything that is still unfinished and unresolved. That version is enough. Not because you earned it, and not because you performed your way into it, and not because you finally became something that justified the designation, but because I made you. And what I make is not insufficient. What I made when I made you was not a lesser version of what I intended. It was exactly what I intended, fully, completely, with every quality and every capacity and every potential already present. The not enoughness was never in you. It was always in the lie. The second lie I want to name is this: you are too much. I know these two lies seem like opposites, and in a way they are, but the enemy is not consistent. He is strategic, and he will use whichever one is most effective in any given season. Sometimes the same person carries both simultaneously, feeling not enough in one area of their life and too much in another, and the dissonance of carrying both at once is itself a form of destabilization. The too much lie sounds like this: you are too sensitive, too intense, too needy. Too loud or too quiet, too emotional or too detached, too ambitious or too dreamy, 2. Whatever the quality is that has caused friction with the people around you at some point in your life. The enemy took the very qualities I placed in you with purpose and intention and turned them into sources of shame. The sensitivity I gave you, because it would allow you to love people deeply and perceive things others miss, became something you learned to apologize for. The intensity I gave you, because it would fuel the persistence the calling requires, became something you tried to manage and contain so as not to overwhelm the people around you. The passion I gave you, because it would drive you toward the thing I made you for, became something you second-guessed, because it made you stand out in ways that felt uncomfortable. These are not flaws, they are features. They were designed. And the enemy's campaign to make you ashamed of them was always about one thing: removing the very tools I gave you for the work I called you to do. I want to talk now about the lies that were delivered through other people, because those are often the hardest ones to dismantle. When the lie comes in the voice of someone who had authority in your life, someone whose opinion mattered, someone you loved or respected or needed, it lands differently than a whisper in the dark. It comes with the weight of a real human relationship. It comes with history attached. It comes with the credibility of someone who actually knew you and still reached this conclusion about you, which makes it feel more accurate than an abstract attack could ever feel. I know the voices. I know whose words are still living in you, shaping your sense of what is possible and what you deserve and what you are capable of. I know the parent whose expectations carved channels in you that still direct the flow of your self-perception. I know the teacher whose assessment of your potential defined the ceiling you have been trying to break through. I know the partner whose words about your worth arrived at a moment when you were not armored against them, and that have never fully left. I know the friend who said the thing that settled into you like a stone, heavy and permanent, that you have been carrying ever since. And I want to speak directly about all of those voices today. They were wrong. Every one of them that told you something diminishing about who you are and what you are worth, they were wrong. Not because they were bad people necessarily, though some of them were, but because they were not qualified to make the assessment they were making. The assessment of who you are belongs to me alone, and mine has never sounded like theirs. Here is what I say about you. I say you are fearfully and wonderfully made, not as a generic declaration about humanity, but as a specific statement about you, about the particular way I put you together, about the specific combination of qualities and capacities and characteristics that make up who you are. I did not mass-produce you. I did not create you on a template. I made you distinctly, intentionally, with attention to every detail, and when I finished, I looked at what I had made and I said it was good, not adequate, not acceptable, good. And nothing that has happened since has changed that assessment, not your failures, not your worst moments, not the things that were done to you or the things you did that you wish you could undo, not the seasons when you were far from me, not the times when you acted in ways that did not reflect who I made you to be. None of it revised my original declaration. You are still fearfully and wonderfully made. You are still good. And you are still who I said you were before anyone else had the chance to say anything different. I also want to speak to the lies about your past, because the enemy has used your history against you more than almost anything else. He has taken the chapters you are least proud of and built a permanent identity out of them, as though the worst thing you ever did is the most true thing about you, as though the hardest season you ever walked through defines the whole arc. He has presented your mistakes as your character. He has used your wounds as evidence of your worth. He has taken the things that happened to you, the things done to you without your consent, the things that left marks you did not ask for, and he has tried to make you own them as though they were your fault, as though they were proof of something deficient in you, rather than the result of living in a broken world where broken things sometimes happen to people who did not deserve them. I want to speak clearly about your past today. Your past is not your identity. Your worst chapter is not your character. Your mistakes are not the most true thing about you. And the things that were done to you are not a verdict on your worth. Your history is the road you traveled to get here. It is not the destination. It does not determine what is possible from this point forward, and it does not define who I say you are. I want to go deeper into the specific mechanics of how the enemy built his case against your identity, because understanding how the deception worked is part of how you begin to dismantle it. He did not arrive with obvious lies. He did not come to you with statements so clearly false that your defenses would immediately engage. He came with something far more dangerous. He came with half-truths, with real experiences twisted into false conclusions, with accurate observations attached to inaccurate interpretations. He would take something real, a failure, a rejection, a season of struggle, something that genuinely happened and genuinely hurt, and he would attach a meaning to it that was entirely his own invention. The failure was real. The meaning he assigned to it, that you are someone who fails, that failure is your pattern, that failure is your nature, that was the lie. The rejection was real. The interpretation he layered over it, that you are someone who gets rejected because you are fundamentally hard to love, that was the lie. The struggle was real. The narrative he built around it, that you are someone who cannot get ahead, that the struggle is uniquely yours, that it reflects something broken at the core of who you are, that was the lie. He has been doing this your entire life, taking what was real and bending the meaning until the meaning became the thing you believed about yourself. And the reason it worked is because it felt grounded. It felt like you were drawing logical conclusions from actual evidence rather than agreeing with a carefully constructed deception. I want to give you a new way of reading your own history that does not give the enemy the narrative rights he has been claiming. Every failure in your life is evidence of someone who tried. Every rejection is evidence of someone who was willing to be vulnerable enough to be rejected. Every season of struggle is evidence of someone who kept going through difficult terrain. Every wound is evidence of someone who loved deeply enough to be hurt by loss. I'm not asking you to pretend the hard things were not hard. I am asking you to stop letting the enemy be the one who decides what the hard things mean. Because the meaning he assigned to every difficult chapter in your life was designed to shrink you, and the meaning I assign is designed to build you. The same experiences, read through my eyes, tell a completely different story. A story of someone who has been in the fire and survived it. A story of someone whose faith has been tested in ways that have made it more durable, not less. A story of someone who has been shaped by difficulty in ways that have produced a depth of character and a capacity for compassion that the easy road never could have built. That is your story. That is the true version. And the enemy has been working overtime to keep you from reading it that way. I also want to speak to the identity theft that happened in your most formative seasons, because I think that is where the deepest damage was done and where the most important restoration needs to happen. There is a version of you that existed before the world had the chance to tell you who you were. A version that was curious and open and unguarded, that had not yet learned to hide the parts of itself that made others uncomfortable, that had not yet built the protective structures that became so familiar you eventually forgot they were structures at all and started thinking they were just who you were. That original version of you, the one that existed before the editing began, is still in there. It did not get destroyed by what came after. It got buried. It got covered over by the adaptations you made to survive in environments that were not always safe for the full expression of who you were. But it is still there. And what I am doing in you right now, in this season and through this message, and in the ongoing work of my presence in your life, is excavation. I am uncovering what was always there. I am peeling back the layers of what you were told and what you concluded and what you decided to protect yourself with, and I am getting back to what I placed in you before any of that happened. That is the restoration I am bringing, not the creation of something new, the recovery of something original. The return to the you I always knew was in there before the world got its say. Let me speak to the relationship between your identity and your behavior, because I think the enemy has used your behavior as the primary tool for building the false identity, and I want to address that connection directly. He has been pointing to the moments when you acted in ways that did not reflect your best self and saying, "See, this is who you really are. This is what comes out when the pressure is applied. This is the truth beneath the surface." And because those moments were real, because the behavior was genuinely yours, the argument has been hard to refute. But here is the truth about the relationship between behavior and identity that the enemy never wants you to understand. Your worst behavior does not define your deepest identity. What you do in your weakest moments is not a more accurate revelation of who you are than what you do in your strongest ones. The full picture includes both, and the full picture, read correctly, shows someone who is in process, someone who is growing, someone who sometimes falls short of who they are becoming and who gets back up and tries again. That is not the portrait of a person whose identity is defined by their failures. That is the portrait of a person who is being transformed, which is exactly what I promise to do in everyone who belongs to me. The transformation is real. It is ongoing. And the fact that it is not yet complete does not mean your identity is the incomplete version. Your identity is who I say you are. And I say you are someone I am making new, every day, one step at a time. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, your support does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our Daily Light of Christ community through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you are not just visiting a site. You are entering a family of like-minded believers who are learning together what it means to live from the identity God gave them rather than the one the enemy built, who remind each other every day of the truth about who they are and whose they are. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with people who speak the language of faith and who will stand with you in prayer when you do not have the strength to stand alone. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give reaches someone who is sitting right now under the weight of a lie about who they are, needing to hear the truth. Your seed reaches them. Your presence changes things. Give and it will be given to you. That is the promise that sustains this shared mission. Come with purpose. Join the conversation. Plant your seed in fertile ground. Let us open the heavens together. I want to speak now about what it looks like to begin living from the truth instead of the lie. Because knowing the truth and living from it are two different things, and the distance between them is where a lot of people get stuck. You can hear everything I have said today, receive it mentally, agree with it theologically, and still walk out of this moment and back into the same patterns of self-diminishment that the lies created, because patterns that were built over a long time do not dissolve in a single moment, even when the moment is a significant one. So I want to give you something practical to carry. Every time the old voice rises, the one that says not enough, too much, too damaged, too far behind, too broken to be used, I want you to do one thing. Bring it to me. Do not argue with it alone. Do not try to outthink it or overpower it by sheer force of will. Bring it to me and ask me what I say about it, because what I say is always stronger than what the enemy says, and the practice of replacing his voice with mine, one instance at a time, one lie at a time, is how the rewiring happens. It is not instantaneous. It is a process. But it is a process I will walk with you through every step of, and it is a process that leads somewhere worth going. It leads to the freedom of someone who knows who they are and is no longer asking the world's permission to be it. I want to talk about your purpose now, because the lies about your identity were always ultimately lies about your purpose. The enemy did not just want you to feel bad about yourself. He wanted you to believe that someone like you, flawed and insufficient, and too much and not enough, could not possibly be someone with a significant calling. He wanted the diminished self-image to produce a diminished life, a life spent on the margins of what I intended, never quite stepping into the center of what you were made for, because the center felt like a place for people who were more qualified, more capable, more together than you. I want to dismantle that today completely and permanently. Your calling is not contingent on your having arrived at a certain level of wholeness or confidence or capability. I do not call people because they are already equipped. I call people and then I equip them. I do not choose the polished and the perfect. I choose the willing and the available, and the ones who, despite every reason not to, keep saying yes to what I am asking of them. That is who I chose when I chose you, not the finished version, the willing version, the version that is here right now, still saying yes even after everything, still showing up even when the showing up is hard. That is the person I called, and the calling has not changed. I also want to speak to the specific gifts and qualities in you that the enemy has worked hardest to suppress, because I think you need to hear me name them, even if I cannot name them with the specificity that a private conversation would allow. There is something in you that I placed there with intention, something that the world around you has not always known what to do with, something that has been a source of friction or confusion or misunderstanding in your relationships and your environments, something that did not fit neatly into the categories that the people around you were comfortable with. That thing, whatever it is for you, is not a problem to be managed. It is not a liability to be minimized. It is not an eccentricity to be apologized for. It is a gift. It is the specific gift I gave you for the specific work I called you to, and the reason it has not always fit comfortably into the spaces you have occupied is not that there is something wrong with it. It is that those spaces were never the final destination. There is a place where what you carry fits perfectly. There is a context where the thing that has always felt like too much or like a misfit becomes exactly what was needed, and I am moving you toward that place. The gifts that have been unused and misunderstood are about to find their expression, and when they do, you will understand why they were always worth protecting. I want to speak now about the freedom that is available on the other side of this, because I do not want this message to end with only the dismantling of the lies. I want you to have a picture of what life looks like when you are living from the truth about who you are rather than from the narrative the enemy constructed. Because there is a version of your life that is available that you have not yet fully inhabited, a version where the energy you have been spending on managing the not enoughness and containing the too muchness and defending against the identity the enemy assigned is redirected toward the actual life I called you to live. That energy is significant. You have been spending enormous amounts of it just maintaining a functional existence under the weight of the false identity. And when that weight lifts, when the lies are no longer the operating system you are running on, what becomes available to you is remarkable. The creativity that was suppressed, the generosity that was held back by scarcity thinking, the boldness that was kept small by the fear of confirming the worst things you believed about yourself, the relationships that were kept at arm's length by the belief that the real you was too much or not enough to be truly loved. All of that becomes available when the lie loses its grip. And the lie losing its grip is what I am working toward in you, not someday, now, today, in this conversation, in this moment of truth being spoken directly into the place the lie has occupied. I also want to speak to the specific area of your life where the false identity has done the most damage, the area where the lie has been most active and most limiting, and where the gap between who you actually are and who you have been allowed to be has been widest. I cannot name that area in specific terms because I am speaking to many people at once and each person's story is different, but you know what it is. You know the place in your life where the lie has been the loudest, where the self-diminishment has been most consistent, where the thing I placed in you has been most consistently suppressed by the false narrative. I want to speak directly into that place today. The lie that has been operating there is not the truth. The ceiling you have accepted there is not real. The version of yourself you have been presenting in that area, the smaller, safer, more apologetic version, is not the full picture of what I put in you. And I am asking you today to begin, even in small ways, even in imperfect and tentative ways, to push back against the smallness in that specific area, to let a little more of the real you show up there, to experiment with what happens when you bring the actual gift I gave you rather than the managed version. Because what I think you will find, as you begin to move in that direction, is that the real you, the unedited, unconstrained, actually, who I made you version, is better received than the lie told you it would be. The world does not need the smaller version of you. It needs the full one, and it is ready for it in ways the enemy never wanted you to believe. I want to close this section with something I have been waiting to say from the beginning of this message, something that I think is the heart of everything else. The enemy lied to you about who you are because he is terrified of who you are, not who you used to be or who you might become someday under the right conditions, who you are right now. The person you are in this moment, with everything that is still unfinished and unresolved, with the faith that is tired and the wounds that are still present, and the calling that is still more seed than harvest. That person, exactly as they currently are, is someone the enemy considers a serious enough threat to have invested this much effort in diminishing. Think about that. The campaign he ran against your identity was not a casual effort. It was sustained and strategic and personal. And sustained, strategic, personal campaigns are not launched against people who pose no threat. They are launched against people who pose a real one. You are a real threat to everything the enemy is trying to build. And the lies about your identity were always his attempt to neutralize that threat before it could fully materialize. They did not work. You are still here, still reaching, still belonging to me, and still becoming everything he was trying to prevent. That is who you are, and it is more than enough to terrify him. I want to end this section by saying something about courage, because everything I have said today is going to require courage to walk in. Courage to disagree with the voices that have been loudest. Courage to hold the truth about your identity against the evidence the enemy has been building. Courage to step into the calling without waiting until you feel worthy of it. Courage to use the gifts that have been suppressed without apologizing for them. Courage to be, fully and without diminishment, the person I made you to be. That courage is not something you have to manufacture alone. It is something I give. And I am giving it to you now, in this moment, as a direct transfer from my strength to your need. You do not have to be fearless. You just have to be willing. Willing to take the next step, even when the old voices are loud. Willing to act on what I say about you, even when the feelings have not fully caught up yet. Willing to live as though the truth is true before it feels completely real. That willingness is the seed of the courage, and I will grow it into something that will carry you further than you can currently see. I want to say one more thing about the lies that came from the inside, the ones that were not delivered by other people or by circumstances, but that seemed to originate in your own mind and your own voice. The self-criticism that became so automatic it felt like just being honest. The internal monologue that assessed every action and found it wanting, that compared every version of yourself to some impossible standard and recorded the gap as evidence of inadequacy. The voice inside you that was quick to remind you of what you did wrong and slow to acknowledge what you did right, that minimized your victories and magnified your failures, that held you to a standard it would never apply to anyone else you loved. That voice felt like yours. It felt like self-awareness. But my child, I need you to understand where that voice came from. It came from the accumulated effect of the enemy's long campaign. It is his narrative, internalized so completely over so many years that it began to sound like your own thoughts. You are not your harshest critic because you are unusually clear-eyed about your flaws. You are your harshest critic because the enemy spent a long time teaching you to speak to yourself the way he speaks about you. And part of the freedom I am offering you today is freedom from that internal voice. Not the voice of genuine conviction that leads to growth. That voice is mine, and it sounds like love even when it is correcting. But the voice of condemnation, the one that tears down without building up, the one that makes you feel worse about yourself without pointing you toward anything better, that voice was never mine. And you do not have to keep listening to it. You do not have to keep letting it be the loudest voice in the room. I am offering you a different voice. My voice. The one that says you are loved, you are enough, you are chosen, you are becoming, and I am proud of you. Let that be the voice you come home to. Let that be the one that has the final word. You are not who the enemy said you were. You are not defined by what he used against you. You are not limited by the lies that felt like facts for so long. You are who I said you were. Before the world got its hands on you, before the wounds accumulated, before the failures wrote their story over the one I was telling, I spoke your name, and I declared your identity, and I made you with everything you would need for everything I was calling you to. That declaration still stands. And I am calling you back into it today, all the way in, without reservation, without apology, without the diminishment that the enemy spent so long trying to make permanent. You are mine. I made you, and what I made is not small. And I want to leave you with this image, because I think it captures something important about what today is and what it can mean for everything that follows. There is a moment in the life of a person who has been living under a false name, who has been responding to a label that was never theirs, when someone who knows their real name speaks it out loud, and something in them recognizes it before their mind has fully processed what happened. Something in the deepest part of them says, yes, that is it. That is who I actually am. I had almost forgotten, but now I remember. That is what I am doing today. I am speaking your real name, the one I gave you before the world had the chance to give you a different one. The one that is written in heaven, the one that captures who I always saw when I looked at you, the one that carries your calling and your gifting and your worth and your belovedness all at once. I am speaking it today, and I am asking something in the deepest part of you to recognize it, not because you have to manufacture the recognition, but because it is already there. Because somewhere underneath all the layers of what you were told and what you concluded and what you have been carrying, the truth of who you are has been waiting to be named. It is being named now. Receive it, all of it, and let it be the name you answer to from this day forward. Let us pray together. Lord Jesus, I come to you right now on behalf of every heart that is hearing this message. You know, the one who has been living inside a lie about who they are for so long that the lie has started to feel like home. You know, the one who hears the truth about their identity and wants to receive it, but feels the resistance of everything that was built in the opposite direction. You know, the one who is sitting right now with tears forming because something in this message reached a place that has been waiting a long time to hear it. Meet them there, Lord. Speak directly into the specific lie that has done the most damage in that specific life. Call it by name in their spirit, and replace it with the truth, not in a way that feels theoretical, but in a way that feels real and personal and like something they can actually stand on. Restore the identity that the enemy stole. Rebuild the confidence that the years of diminishment eroded. And let every person hearing this leave this moment knowing, more clearly than they did when they arrived, who they are, whose they are, and what they were made for. In Jesus' name, Amen. If this message reached you today, type, "I know who I am" in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that the enemy's version of their story is not the true one. God's version is, and it has always been bigger,